sorry, obviously we're having trouble with displays here in class, but we're going to forge ahead for our review for the midterm exam, which is happening next class. It's a mandatory event, so everyone has to come in next class in order to write the exam. If you have a class with me in the afternoon, it's a different story, but for this class, we'll be meeting up at 9:30, and we'll just do the exam. There won't be a lecture after the exam or anything, so you'll have the whole class period if you want. So there is midterm exam review file here, which is what we'll be working from. And so, you know, we have been using Kahoots to review in class, and so we'll be using Kahoots again. So there's a Kahoot for each of the 6 chapters that are covered in the midterm. So chapters 1, 2, and 3 were tested in our first quiz. And the quiz questions, a subset of them are coming back, as well as we're also working on chapters 4, 5, and 6. And those are questions that you've been seeing on the Kahoots. So together, all of them make up kind of a pool of questions, and then the midterm is composed of 50 of those questions. No, 40, sorry, 40. Reduce the number just because there's too much to go on. So there are 40 questions. It's a combination of multiple choice and true-false questions. So you've already seen some of them on the quiz. And they are all covered perhaps in a similar form on the Kahoot. So the Kahoots are sometimes different from what you'll see on the exam, but the topic of the Kahoot is the same. So it gives us a chance just to remind ourselves of the content there. If you want to go beyond the Kahoots, which have been up since last Thursday, you can also look at the PowerPoint presentations that we had in class, especially if there's, you know, if going through the Kahoots, there's something that you didn't understand and that for some reason today we didn't get to it either, then check on the PowerPoints for the chapter. So they're all up there as well. So does everybody have access to these Kahoots? Like you all have a device, right? Because we have in the past had some students whose, you know, their phone was broken or something, and so they couldn't use this. So I would definitely want to know if you can't use this form of review. I mean, here in class, it's important, of course, you can stream it and see what we're doing, but it's also helpful to have access to these to be able to play them. So these go offline at 9 a.m. on Thursday, these Kahoots. So after that, they won't be available. Okay, so we can play the Kahoots to figure out what we're doing. And I'm just thinking I had it all open before, didn't I?
Chapter 1?
Chapter 1, yeah. So that's chapter 1. Okay, let's start up. You can still join in if you want. So questions here. Whose model of communication is known as the mathematical model?
Can't see it.
Yep, really can't. Can you see it on your phone?
No. Oh, it just shows
Oh, it just shows you the options, huh?
the shapes.
Okay, so what are we going to do with this now? Well, the answer to this one was Shannon and Weaver had the mathematical model, which is considered the nation's first mass medium. Radio, internet, telegraph, or newspapers. All right. Well, the answer was newspapers. So now the radio would have been the first electronic mass medium, but the question asked just a mass medium itself. So newspapers is the right answer there. Convergence happens when different types of media become the same. So that's meaning, for instance, when your cell phone can show video. And so that's true, correct? Convergence. So convergence means that separate things converge together. They become the same. And so media became the same within new devices. Localism doesn't matter to radio stations anymore. True or false? Okay, great. Everyone got that. So radio really has, localism is one of its key strengths, which helps it compete against other forms of music online. What do you call messages that are received almost instantaneously after transmission? Non-mediated, asynchronous, synchronous, immediated. Okay, so the correct answer was synchronous, all right? So what this means is basically if you're watching a football game and they have the kickoff, within about a second or so, everyone who's watching the football game live is seeing it at the same time. So that's synchronous versus asynchronous would be, you know, if you're watching a Netflix show, who knows when you're going to see it? Not at the same time as everybody else. How's that, Jody? Is okay? Okay, cool. All right, so the answer was synchronous, when it's almost immediate, like it's basically simultaneous with the event that's happening live. Okay. What is probably the most revolutionary innovation since the printing press? Was it consolidation, digitization of mediated content, monetizing the marketplace of ideas, or convergence? Digitization was correct. So really that's what's been driving all the changes since the 1980s now. The incredible acceleration of changes in media technology due to digitization. Digital lets stations offer multiple channels in their frequencies. So we're talking about both radio and television can offer sub-channels. For instance, if you're looking at channel 5, you'll have channel 5 sub 1, channel 5 sub 2, channel 5 sub 3, and it also lets radios do the same thing. Digital radio allows you to have many channels on the same frequency. So it is true, and as I've been giving you examples, I would have expected you to vote that it is true. Remember also there's something called IBOC if we're talking about radio.
In-band on channel.
In-band on channel, right, Joe, that's right. In-band on channel. And so what that means is it's a form of digital radio, and if you were, you know, 107.1 or something like that, you could send out your usual FM signal, but you could also send out a digital signal at the same time, and that digital signal would allow you to have multiple channels, not just one digital channel going out on 107.1 along with the analog radio, but many channels, which would allow you to have different streams of music, a new audience. Which kind of an effect is it when we learn from the mass movement? Cognitive, correct. So when it comes to learning, we learn with our, you know, cognition. We learn to understand things. So that's cognitive. When we look at an exciting football game or something, it might be an emotional effect that we have. When we get hungry, when we watch a cooking show, then that's a behavioral effect because we're going to go out and maybe cook something ourselves once we've looked at the media. So cognitive or emotional or behavioral, these are all types of effects that the media could have. Next up. Which of the following statements is true? The FCC treats subscription media differently than broadcast. The fairness doctrine is no longer in place. The internet has full First Amendment protection. Or it's all true. Okay, so nobody, well, hang on a sec. It's all true is the correct answer.
Oh.
This is wrong. So sorry about that. I should correct that Kahoot. Let me say that if this question comes up, I'll accept any of these answers, but they're all true. Let's say why. First of all, the FCC has a mandate to protect the public from offensive or obscene content when it's over the air waves, but when it's over cable, they don't have the same mandate. So that's why HBO or other shows can show significantly more adult content than ABC or CBS. So this is true. The FCC is required to monitor content and make sure it meets certain standards that cable or the internet does not have to meet. The internet has full First Amendment protection. That means that people's speech is protected from government censorship on the internet as it is protected in other forms of media. And sometimes when, for instance, Facebook would move to try to shut down certain political advertising, they might run afoul of the First Amendment, which is that the government shall not interfere in people's political speech. So they have to go tread carefully even as they respond to problems about political advertising. The Fairness Doctrine is no longer in place, and so the Fairness Doctrine covered media up until about the 1980s. It insisted that if you had a conservative viewpoint in the same show, you immediately had to have a liberal viewpoint as well, following up. Around about the 1980s, with a conservative presidency, Ronald Reagan's presidency, the FCC decided to no longer enforce the Fairness Doctrine. So now that opens the door to partisan media like Fox News or like MSNBC, which can show only one side of any issue and they don't get in trouble. Way to go, Chow. Way to go, Lonnie. Way to go, Michael. And we're going to move on to a second Kahoot on Chapter 2. So again, let's play them as they come up here. Yeah, William says Kahoot is hard to use over stream. It's true. So, you know, the Kahoots can be used for you at home. So the Kahoot number 4322494. So, David Sarnoff's radio music box memo described a way to make money from broadcast radio. True or false? Got a whole minute on that? I think we're going to skip ahead. Sorry to those who haven't had a chance to. Okay, 4 people got it right. Correct. So in the early days of radio, they really didn't know how they were going to make money on it, but Sarnoff was one of the visionaries of the radio business, said, hey, you can send music into people's homes and make a mass entertainment medium out of this. Radio news was controversial. The press radio war happened, settled by the Biltmore Agreement. So a few people covered this in their essays, which was gratifying to see. So the correct answer is this is true. There was a Biltmore Agreement which allowed radio to go ahead and start broadcasting news, taken from the wire services. So who invented FM radio? Number of questions interested. Was it Reginald Fessenden, Guglielmo Marconi, Heinrich Hertz, or Edwin Howard Armstrong? All right, so it was Armstrong who invented FM radio. Okay, just looking at these other folks, so Marconi is generally credited as the inventor of radio as a communication system. In his day, it would have been AM radio, and this is at the very early days of radio. Armstrong invented FM almost single-handedly and then committed suicide eventually when he was ruined due to industry bad dealings with Sarnoff. Fessenden brought audio into the radio waves. When Marconi first made his first system, it was Morse code. So Fessenden got us to actually hear himself playing violin and reading from the Bible. And then Heinrich Hertz, this goes way back a little earlier, proved the existence of the electromagnetic spectrum with his experiments with the spark gap generators. So Hertz was at the start of all of it, but had nothing to do with radio himself. Okay. Who proved that electromagnetic energy traveled through the air? Well, this will prove whether you were listening to what I just said, because I just finished giving you the answer on this one. Okay. So who proved that electromagnetic energy traveled through the air? Absolutely. Everyone was listening. Excellent. 5 people got it right. So that was Heinrich Hertz. Okay. Lee DeForest invented a tube. What was it called? The diode tube, the F valve, the audion. And there we go. So he invented the audion tube. 3 people got it right. That's good. So the audion tube was responsible for amplifying the signal in radio, so that, you know, at one point you had to have like a little little earplug, and all you could hear was a faint sound that was coming through a crystal radio, but with the Audion tube, it amplified it so that you could hear it really well and could hear it over further, longer distances. Congress has the right to regulate broadcasting because A, the airwaves belong to the people. B, American broadcast system is a commercial enterprise. C, early unregulated radio generated too much noise. And we're going to charge ahead. And so 3 people got it right. The airwaves belong to the people. Okay, so just like the government gives itself the right to create national parks and divvy out the land on which America is based, they viewed the airwaves, the electromagnetic spectrum, as a public good, and so assigned to them the responsibility to oversee the use of the airwaves as well as the waterways and the land, etc. So that's why they have a mandate to oversee broadcasting. What we today refer to as a network was called what in the 1920s? And let's jump ahead again. 4 people got it right. Excellent. Almost everyone. So it was called chain broadcasting. The idea there being that programming could originate in one station but be connected to all the other stations through a chain of long distance lines. So that's why they called it chain broadcasting at that time. Now we call it networks. Okay, prior to the Radio Act of 1927, so this was the precursor to the FCC, the Radio Act, tried to get involved to regulate the radio industry. This thing automatically jumbles up all the answers. A, legislation was inadequate to regulate commercial radio. B, all radio stations broadcast on the same frequency. And C, stations were encouraged to take turns broadcasting. D, could it have been all of the above? And so the answer D, all of the above in this case, all right? So there really wasn't any effective legislation that was going to, for instance, assign frequencies and try to organize the radio business. All the radio stations were on the same frequency, which meant that there was trouble with overlapping broadcasts. So they were encouraged to take turns broadcasting, but clearly that was not going to work. So at that point, with the Radio Act of 1927, they created frequencies that different stations could broadcast on. The licensing arrangements happened, so you had to get a license in order to use a particular frequency. So it cleaned up the business and made it possible for commercial enterprise to work. Westinghouse was interested in broadcasting because it would A, make more revenue from advertising. Was Westinghouse an advertiser? B, allow them to sell more radio receivers. C, improve the moral climate of wholesome entertainment. Was Westinghouse interested in entertainment? Or D, all of the above? Okay, we got 4 answers already. I skipped all of this up. 4. So the correct answer was B, to allow them to sell more radio receivers. So Westinghouse was an electronics manufacturer, and once this First World War was over, the big communication companies, AT&T, RCA, and Westinghouse, they all kind of divided up the radio business into different sections and gave each other sort of free rein to dominate in that sector. So, RCA with its NBC, RCA owned NBC. They were in the content business. Westinghouse was in the manufacturing of sets, and AT&T, connected it all together. So that was the way they organized the business. Radio stations profited during World War II because advertisers bought radio ads instead of print. And so that is true. Yeah, newsprint was rationed in the Second World War, which meant that newspapers couldn't print as many editions as they wanted to. It meant that their circulation went down. They didn't have as large an audience. And so they started to lose out to radio, which didn't have a scarce resource in terms of newsprint. So radio won out in the Second World War. Okay, great. So we're ready to start. Any questions? We are ready. And, okay, in 1961, who referred to television as a vast wasteland? Oh, yeah. With a small fish in a big pond. Today, 4 people got it right. Newton Minow. So Newton Minow was an FCC commissioner who said, television really sucks. It's a wasteland. Let's try to promote public television, give some money to the public broadcasting system so it gets better. FM radio had better quality than AM. Broadcasters immediately switched over to FM. Would that be true or false? As soon as we hit 6 answers. So it is not true. Considering that the inventor of FM radio, Howard Armstrong, killed himself because he invested everything in FM and then it didn't take off. So FM was available as of the mid-1930s, but it wasn't actually widely used until the late 50s and early 60s. So it took almost 25 years for FM radio to establish itself. Who was associated with the invention of TV? So there were 2 guys who were battling each other, but one is credited with actually inventing television, and the other guy's name is not even on that list, just to make it a little less ambiguous. So we're going to skip ahead to the answer. 4 people got it right. Philo T. Farnsworth. Who could forget that name? Credited as the inventor of television. Sarnoff thought radio could make money by becoming something in the home. We already had a question on this. David Sarnoff, remember, president of NBC and early protege of Guglielmo Marconi in the RCA. So Sarnoff was a visionary about the broadcasting business. He said that, yeah, we could use radio. 5 people got it right. So Sarnoff called it, yeah, the music box in the home. Radio. All right, just as with radio, early television was dominated by networks. True or false? Okay, woo, evenly tied. Well, this is true. Okay, so the radio business was dominated by networks. NBC, CBS, and eventually ABC joined in. When television became available, it was obviously, you know, the brainchild of NBC's Sarnoff to commercialize it. CBS was in there as well. So it was also dominated by networks. A TV station that associates with a network to play all of its programs is called what? So in other words, a local station signs a contract with ABC. What do we call that type of relationship? Is it a repeater, a syndicator, a superstation, or an affiliate? And as soon as we hit 6, okay, great. So most people got it, an affiliate. So again, what that means is the local station signs a contract with the network, says we're going to play all of its programs. Remember what that would be called when that type of contract, when an affiliate says I'm going to play all your programs, what's that called? It's like a needle in the haystack. It's called clearance, remember? So clearance means that the affiliate promises to play all of the programs that the network gives to it. Even if, for instance, you're an affiliate in some very conservative state and you're getting programming out of New York, which is a little bit racy or something like that, you still signed a clearance agreement. That means you're going to play everything they give you, even if you don't think your audience is necessarily going to like it. Television made its first public debut when? 1926 at Macy's. 1945 when the atomic bomb was dropped. After the Titanic sunk in 1912, or in 1939 at the New York World's Fair. Good. 4 people got it. 1939 at the New York World's Fair. So we watched a little video of Sarnoff presenting. Okay, cable television originally started. What did cable television do? at the start of its existence. As a joint venture with AT&T and local telephone companies, as an experiment for two-way communications, to bring TV into remote areas where reception was bad, or in hopes of competing with movie theaters. So what would have been the role of cable television when it started? Okay, 4 people got it right. Way to go. So originally, cable TV was called CATV, Community Antenna Television, and that would mean that a whole bunch of different televisions would share the same antenna, and they did that because they lived somewhere kind of off the grid. They couldn't get good reception, so someone would put an antenna up on a mountaintop or something, reception was good, and everyone in that community would hook up to it, and that was the start of cable television in order to get better reception in remote areas. All right, the Advanced Television Systems Committee, ATSC, adopted the broadcast standard used as HDTV. True or false? Moving ourselves along. Good, it is true. So in 2009, all televisions became HD televisions. That means high definition televisions using the ATSC standard. Prior to that, it was called NTSC. This is what happened. Okay. Over the top, OTT. So that's a very important concept in broadcasting today. What does OTT do? Which of those describes OTT? Is it extending the prime time period? Taxation of satellite delivered television content? Or is OTT settings used to limit excessive violence? Or is it streaming services that provide content directly to audiences? OTT refers to 4 people got it right. Excellent. So remember, OTT, over the top of what? It's over the top of the cable set-top box. So in other words, it's an internet connection that bypasses cable television altogether and plugs into your television, giving you access to Roku, Netflix, Sling TV, all of those streaming services. All right, good job on the podium. Let me ask you a couple of additional questions. Carriage rules. So we talked about clearance, but this is different. Carriage rules refers to what? Absolutely. So carriage rules, anybody remember? Okay. I won't give you time to remember even. So carriage rules, you'll also hear this referred to as must carry. So what this means is that a cable operator who sets up in a local area like the Bay Area here must carry all of the network affiliates that operate in that particular area. So in the Bay Area, Comcast, let's say, who operates in the Bay Area, has to promise to carry the ABC affiliate, the NBC affiliate, the CBS affiliate from the Bay Area. Technologically, they could go get ABC from San Diego if they wanted, if they could cut a better deal with the ABC station in San Diego. But what would that do? That would cut out the ABC affiliate here in San Francisco unfairly. So they would immediately lose a big part of their audience if Comcast didn't carry them. So there's a rule called must carry, which falls under the general category of carriage rules, which is that if you operate here in the Bay Area, you have to carry all of the major broadcasters from the Bay Area. Okay, so that's carriage rules. 10 more questions. As I said, the midterm is composed of a subset of all these questions. So these you have not been quizzed on before, but we've seen them in Cahoots. A network schedules a new or weak program between 2 strong programs. So what is the name of that? Looks kind of like this. So here's program 1, program 2. Oh, that's kind of not as good a showing as I had thought. So this is a programming strategy called hammocking, right? If you look at it this way, we've got 2 strong programs that are highly rated. This is kind of like good ratings. And a U program, which is a little lower rated, and the picture that we draw in our mind looks like a hammock, because the U program is situated between two strong programs. The idea being that you can boost the ratings of the weak program by putting it between two strong programs during prime time. A network programs places 4 situation comedies into a 2-hour time period. So sorry about that. What I'm trying to say is the network puts 4 situation comedies in a 2-hour time period. What's that called? Okay, good. That's called blocking. You create a block of programs. So, for instance, for adult animated comedies on a Sunday night is a block. A network programs a show so that it runs over the starting time of the next program. What's that called? Blocking, tent poling, bridging, or hammocking? It's not hammocking and it's not blocking. So it's either tent poling or bridging. Okay, ooh, excellent, excellent, bridging. Well, I'm glad I put these on the exam because clearly people are getting the sense of these programming strategies. ESPN is a what? A failing enterprise? Yes, but it's also a cable network, a superstation, a broadcast network, or a pay-per-view channel. And we're looking for the magic numbers. Okay, excellent. So it is a cable network. Not excellent. 4 people were misled by broadcast network. So ABC is a broadcast network. It broadcasts over the air. ESPN is on cable, so it's a cable network. Along with MTV and BETV. How I Met Your Mother. First broadcast on CB, now in syndications. Rerun is an example of what? Is it an off-network syndicated program, an all-network syndicated program, a first-run syndicated program, or a first network syndicated program? So it was a sitcom that was produced by and shown on CBS, but now any station can buy it in syndication. Well, at least we got a slight uptick on the correct answer. So we call this off-network. Okay, so it was produced by CBS, a network, and now you can see it on any station in a market because they buy it through a syndicator. So that's called an off-network program. It started on a network, and now we see it off the network. Okay, a first-run syndicated program. An example of that would be Dr. Phil or Oprah back in the day, or Star Trek back in the day. This was a program that was produced by a private company, not a network, and then sold to stations all over the country. Whoever wanted to buy it could buy it. So we call that first-run syndicated program because it never was first broadcast by a network. So the distinction here is, did the network produce and show it the first time around? Then when you see it in reruns, it's called off-network because it just came off the network. But if the network did not produce it and never showed it in its original form, then it's a first-run syndicated program. First run meaning the first time you see it because a local station bought it and shows it. To differentiate themselves, radio stations program music according to specific, what's the name that we give to the musical character of a radio station? Stations have different what? Advertisers, formats, rate cards, or countries. And there we go. We had a majority, got it right. So those are called radio formats. That refers to the particular type of music that you'll hear on a radio. Classic rock, country, or maybe not even music. It could be sports talk. That's also a format of radio. So, you know, this happened in the 1950s after television took away most of radio's stars and most of the best performing programs on radio were converted to television, feeding the new medium. Radio was stuck with nothing much to do, so they started playing music instead to survive. And so they evolved music formats. A big reason radio could reinvent itself in the late 50s was, okay, sorry guys, just gave it to you, was rock and roll music. I know you can't win the Cahoots, but you can do great on the exam, okay? So a big reason radio could reinvent itself, it started to play rock and roll music. And on we go. Another name for the program wheel used to schedule radio shows. So this is a wheel that looks like this. It represents an hour of television programming. It's divided into quarters, and you stick different program slices into that. What is that called? Is it called a hot clock? Is it called the Wheel of Fortune? Is it called an auto scheduler or free format? Okay, great. The hot clock. This is a hot clock. Nice. So that's a programming tool for radio. A song played very often on music radio is said to be in heavy what? Payola, heavy airplay, heavy promotion, heavy rotation. And 4 people got it right. Heavy rotation refers to a song that's played very often on the radio. Non-commercial radio stations such as KQED, which is one of our local public radio stations, get underwriting rather than advertising. True or false? Hit 6. Yes, most people get it. So public radio doesn't sell advertising. It gets sponsors to support its programming. And excellent job, folks. That was chapter 4. Moving on to chapter 5. You can still join by entering 376-173. And here we go. So we're on to the internet. Who's the father of the internet? Vint Cerf or Tim Berners-Lee? They're both important people. Oh, no, all wrong. So Vint Cerf. Remember, Vint Cerf was key in creating the TCP/IP protocol, which allowed computers to interchange data with each other. So that was the he'd be the father of the internet. Tim Berners-Lee would be the father of the World Wide Web, which remember is not all there is on the internet. So he's also, you know, a generation after Vint Cerf. The internet is a packet switch network. True or false? Okay. So we'll go, yes, it is true. So the internet is a packet switch network, so are your cell phones, your mobile networks are now all packet switched. It means data is chunked into packets and sent the most efficient way possible. Something viewing is when we use the net out of habit without a clear goal. So is it ritualistic or instrumental, that type of internet use? 3 people got ritualistic. So look, if you're using the net in an instrumental fashion, that means there's something you want to find out about. So it's instrumental. You have a goal in mind. I need to find the information for my term paper. If it's ritualistic, it means you sit down every night at 7 o'clock and surf the web, or every time you get bored, you surf the web in order to fill in a little time. So that's ritualistic. It doesn't have a clear goal. It's more like something you do as a pattern, basically. So both are described valid uses of the internet, but instrumental means you have a goal. Online data is limitless, but speed is controlled by what? URL lag, weak packets, TCP/IP dropouts, or bandwidth? 3. Correct answer is bandwidth. Okay, so that controls how fast your internet connection is. The broader band connection means more data can pass in the same amount of time. It gives you a faster connection for your online video. What type of app helps you surf the web? That's an easy one, I hope. So we're going to skip to the answer. 3 people got it right. It's a browser, okay? So Chrome, Safari, these are browsers. Okay. How much do webcasters pay in royalty fees? So this is if you are an internet radio station. Things can get pretty expensive. Because you have to pay for the rights to play that music over the internet. So do they have to give 10% of all the money they make, or 0.07 cents per listener per song? Do we get to 4 or 2? Oh, somehow only 2 have to answer. So the correct answer, 0.07 cents per listener per song. So for instance, Spotify is actually paying even less than that due to special deals. 10% of overall annual revenue is what radio stations pay. So if they broadcast over the air, they have a different deal. So on the internet, it is judged by per listener per song, which can get very expensive. Streaming technology is or does what? Let's see what it says. Streaming technology pushes a continuous flow of data through the net, or streaming technology leaves user with a file they can share on their computer. Which one describes streaming like YouTube? Correct. Okay, so streaming like YouTube, you have to be connected to the internet in order to play back your content. Okay, and we continue on. Question 8 of 9. Short episodes on YouTube shows are called webisodes. True or false? That's a pretty easy one, but I'll let you guys answer it. Okay, true. That's correct. And as we go on, the web is great for news because, why is the web great for news? There's limitless space on news websites, multimedia presentation of stories, instant update of breaking news, totally reliable information. Right? Everything except for totally reliable information. Awesome. So that's just the problem with internet news is not always true. All right, so our final Kahoot, which you can also play all of these, so 10 questions. Does internet telephone use packet switching technology? Yes or no? Yes, everybody got it right. Excellent. Next up. Google Glass was well received by consumers. Was it? No, it wasn't. It was a failure, so that was a false. Smart personal object technology is in what? It's in the Apple Watch, correct. Personal digital assistants, well, it doesn't have spot technology, but personal digital assistants are important. You should remember that Apple made the first PDA, didn't he? Which company made the first PDA type device? Well, I'm going to give you some points here on this. All right, good. And we move on. Early users of the internet had to connect to the internet via modems or routers. Is that true? Okay, good. 6, something is defined as machine-to-machine communications using cloud computing, networks of sensors. All right, well, we'll skip. It is the Internet of Things, okay? They have sensors. The data is connected to the cloud and analyzed up there. That's the Internet of Things. Online audio, something about online audio. What's it going to say? Allows listener to hear almost any type of music. Seems okay. Allows listeners to generate their own playlists. Yes. Removes geographic restrictions. Yep. So 3, all of the above is correct. OTT TV refers to, well, we already have this one. I guess this one's important. So we'll go getting audio video over the internet bypassing cable providers. Awesome. Sling TV is an example of which of the following? So Sling TV is place shifting or over-the-top television. What that means is, you know, it plugs into your TV via an Ethernet cable, and it also allows you to watch television outside of your home. On-demand digital streaming is available through what? HBO, Amazon, Netflix, all of them. That's true. Okay, there we go. Good job. That's the end of our review. Sorry it took a little bit longer than usual. So next class, everyone should be here for the exam. 40 multiple choice or true-false questions. And you can still use the Kahoots to